You are clear to enter. Welcome to Pizza Planet.
Welcome to Pizza Planet,
a Pixar podcast.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Gareth.
And we're your delivery guys.
Bringing you a square box of round, hot, cheesy Pixar goodness.
We've got a bounty of slices in today's feast, so let's dig in.
Welcome to Pizza Planet. Can I take your order? Oh, you want to hear what's on the menu? Well, today's special is on Lightyear. Ben, you got a synopsis for us?
I sure do. Today we're talking about Lightyear, and we're going to start it off with a little synopsis. According to Disney Wiki, the definitive origin story of Buzz Lightyear, the hero who inspired the toy. Lightyear follows the legendary space ranger after he is marooned on a hostile planet 4.2 million light years from Earth, alongside his commander and their crew. As Buzz tries to find a way back through space and time, he is joined by a group of ambitious recruits and his charming robot companion cat, Socks. Complicating matters and threatening the mission is the arrival of Zurg, an imposing presence with an army of ruthless robots and a mysterious agenda.
Ooh. So I got some stats for you, Ben, real quick on this movie. This movie was directed by Angus MacLane, who his earliest directorial work was the short film Bernie. He also did Small Fry, the Toy Story short, and Toy Story of Terror, one of my favorite of the Toy Story offshoots.
Oh, yeah.
And then he also co-directed Finding Dory, but this is his first time being lead director on a feature film. This cast included Chris Evans, Uzo Aduba, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Keke Palmer, Taika Waititi, Dale Soules, James Brolin, Isaiah Whitlock Jr., Bill Hader was in the beginning of this movie, and nice. Peter Sohn, the guy we talked about in last month's episode, who played Socks in this movie. He was the director of The Good Dinosaur. Nice. But yeah, this movie was released June 17th, 2022, and there's no box office stats yet because, well, it just came out like we're recording this the day after it came out.
Oh yeah, fresh.
And so as far as critics rankings go, this has got a 77% rating with 216 reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, which puts it at number 21 of 26 Pixar movies on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, wow.
Which is kind of surprising. Well, we'll get onto that maybe later, but yeah, it's on the lower end of the critical spectrum for Pixar. So, yeah, well, let's get into our review, Ben.
Dude, yes. So today is a movie review where we review the movie, and
we actually got to see this one together.
Yes, in person. After how long has it been now?
So the last movie that Ben and I, like Pixar movie that Ben and I saw in theaters together, would have been Toy Story 4, which was in 2019.
Wow, so
like
3 years.
3 years, yeah.
Dang.
Yeah, but I mean, we got to see Soul together in person. I think was that.
Yeah, Soul and Onward we watched together on Disney Plus.
Yeah, but we had both already seen Onward before that.
Yeah, Soul
because I saw Onward in theaters opening weekend with my now wife.
Oh, that's right. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, it definitely feels good. It's nostalgic in a lot of ways because this is the first theatrical release of a Pixar film since Toy Story 4.
Yeah.
So,
since Onward.
You're right.
Onward had theatrical release. We just didn't see it together.
That's right. We didn't see it. So this is kind of a big deal.
So, first big observation here. This movie starts by declaring in 1995, a kid named Andy got a toy from his favorite movie for his birthday. This is that movie. And so I feel like this brings some very important context to the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think one of the first complaints, like from the opening shot, well, I don't know if it's in the opening shot, but the first time we see Buzz on screen, he's in his Space Ranger gear. And I feel like the complaint people are going to have is, that's not Buzz.
Oh.
But here's the thing you got to think about. And this is why that opening line is so important. Because yes, this movie is animated, but to Andy, who saw this movie, it was live action.
Oh.
If you think about it, the Buzz we know from Toy Story is a plastic recreation of a actual like live action person
right.
to Andy.
Yeah.
I really want to talk about how like they reverse engineered that design to get this character. Which is it was just impressive.
Yeah, it is, and you know it. I was telling my brother this too after the movie. We were chatting about it, and I was thinking like that initial title screen. In one way, looking back now, was really helpful, but it actually confused me because my expectation was that this was just like, oh, this is just a movie that Pixar's making up that has to do with the real Buzz. But the title screen says like, no, this is the film. Like Andy watched this film, and that's because of this film that you're about to see. He wanted the toy Buzz Lightyear, so it's kind of cool. But seeing that and not expecting it, I was like, oh, whoa, like Andy. This was Andy's film.
Yeah. So. And I know that this is also controversial for Pixar theorists because, you know, this technically breaks the Pixar theory because if all Pixar movies take place in one continuity, and this is a Pixar movie, but it's also a movie inside the Pixar theory, then it's a paradox, you know? It can't simultaneously be fiction within the Pixar theory and be part of the Pixar theory.
Yeah, well, let's see what the Super Carlin Bros have to say about that.
Yeah, well, they had released a video a few weeks ago about it, but then I didn't watch it. But yeah, we'll see what they say now that the movie's out.
Interessante. Well, let's keep diving in, man. So do we want to kind of circle back? We mentioned the synopsis at the beginning, but we want to talk a little bit about the story, talk about the characters a little bit.
Yeah. So, so the story kind of, we already touched on this. Buzz is marooned on this planet. Basically, he feels like indebted to his people. There's like a crew. When the movie starts, it mentions there's like 1,200 people on the planet, or on the spaceship. Yeah. And so he feels like indebted to these people. Like that's a big number of people to be responsible for their being marooned, basically. So he wants to get off the planet, and he thinks that he's doing it for other people. And so he's doing these test flights with the crystallic fusion, trying to achieve light speed so that they are able to get off the planet.
Yeah, let's get back to Earth.
Yeah.
So the story quickly turns once Buzz is the program gets shut down, so Buzz is not able to continue these test flights, and quickly we realize that the whole team, the whole town, if you will, the group of people, the colony has decided to just stay here. Like, let's just live on this planet, and we'll have a shield that'll protect us from these threats.
Laser shield.
Yeah. And so then quickly the story becomes about Buzz is trying to form a ragtag team to kind of go behind the scenes of all this to try to still get the colony, as you said. He feels responsible to get them off this planet. And so that's where we really meet this awesome ragtag team of some endearing characters. So you want to talk about them?
Oh yeah. So there is Izzy, Mo, and Darby, and then of course Socks. Also, there's a robot who is briefly in the mix. I forget the robot's name. I think it's like Derek or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to say that's the director. I want to say that's Angus who plays Derek. But yeah, the characters are so like fun and quirky and just kind of like they're supposed to be literally ragtag in the sense that they have no qualifications. They're just like faking their way through every situation.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah, and but I love it, and we got to talk about Socks. So my favorite characters in this movie were Mo and Socks because I'm a sucker for Taika Waititi, who plays Mo. Just his delivery of every line with his New Zealand accent is just beautiful.
Yeah.
But then Socks, played by Peter Sohn, is really the scene stealer in this movie.
Know, he's so funny. Oh my gosh.
He's the best part of every scene that he's in, and yeah, whenever he has anything coming out of his mouth, it's always like, well, of course that's like the cutest thing you've ever heard.
I know.
Like my favorite scene with him is when Izzy starts petting him and he's like purring and he like rolls over on his back, so she's like petting his belly, and Buzz hears the purring and he's like, "You broke my cat," and she's like, "No, he's just purring." And he's like, "Really, Socks? Do you like that?"
And he's like, "Yes." Something, yeah. Yeah, so many good one-liners from Socks. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I love Mo's character, going back to Mo, just because he wants so badly to be helpful. And I feel like there was a way they could have executed this character that would have been like very forgettable, very like unrelatable. But honestly, there was a few like heartbreaking moments, because you can tell like deep down, like he's not just trying to be helpful for helpful's sake. It's like in his character that he's determined to be of use. And so they do this whole gag with a pen. Like he finds out that his suit is the only suit with like a pen in it. Yep. And he's like, "Do you need a pen? Do you need a pen?" Like the whole movie, he's just like, "Do you need a pen?" And so it drives home this need to be needed. And like that's resonates, I feel like, with every person. Wants to be needed. And but just I feel like the way they did it could have come off as more jokey than character building. But the way I read it, and like definitely in the performance of the animators who animated Mo, you can definitely see that it is a character thing.
Oh yeah. For sure.
And props to the movie again. Talking about not being derivative, props to the movie for never making a pen is mightier than the sword joke.
Yeah.
But who are some of your favorite characters?
Oh, yeah. I mean, of course, Sock stands out. But, definitely Mo. I'm just like, I'm rooting for him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I definitely root for him and feel for him. And he's responsible for some bad things that happen in the movie. And, and so every time I'm just like, oh man, I feel so bad for this dude. And I can relate, I can definitely relate to that, where you just want to help, but you're making things worse.
Yeah.
And so, I like Mo. Socks is great. Yeah. I really liked Izzy. I like her arc and just that. And again, Buzzard's relationship with her mother, and just that whole story is so good, and it's such a big part of Buzz's character too. So
yeah, well, one thing I wanted to talk about with the specifically the portrayal of Buzz in this movie is another thing I think people might complain about is Chris Evans, because we don't have Tim Allen in this movie. It's a different voice, but I'm really impressed because I can see how they came to the conclusion that Chris Evans was perfect casting for this, because Tim Allen has this deep kind of like gravitas in his voice. Mm-hmm. And so if you're trying to like, again, I'm going to keep using this word, reverse engineer, what voice could have potentially inspired the Tim Allen voice? Chris Evans' voice makes a lot of sense. He's got a deep voice. He delivers his dialogue with a lot of like gusto, right? And I could totally see how Tim Allen within the Pixar world, Tim Allen could have been a voice actor doing an impression of Chris Evans' voice from the movie. Yeah, so he's like doing a voice for the toy box, like the voice boxes in the toys and stuff.
Yeah, and just keep going on that point. One of the things that I wrote down was I am fascinated by the way that they were able to take like certain traits from Buzz, but then totally make a unique character that is the Buzz Lightyear.
Oh yeah,
he's so original, like you said, with Chris Evans' voice. Like he has all the same little quirks that the toy Buzz has. Oh yeah, but like. So and that's why like when I was watching the movie I was like, oh, am I just gonna hear Captain America, because that's who Chris Evans plays. But I was like, no, like I believe this is Buzz, but it sounds different and he acts a little bit differently. But he's got similar quirks, and we'll get to this later. But he has even some character flaws that are similar to the toy. So just all around, all around great job to Pixar.
So yeah, and also they included numerous references to Buzz's behavior in Toy Story, like lines of dialogue and like gestures, facial expressions, all kinds of stuff that are calling back to the Buzz that we know.
Yeah.
And so like we hear all kinds of like lines of dialogue, like the line about no intelligent life anywhere.
Yeah.
He's like constantly doing like mission logs, which
Yeah.
is like a quirk he has in this movie. But then you're like, oh, like that's where that came from. Like when Buzz in Toy Story is like always doing his mission log.
Yeah.
It's just like suddenly I feel like now I'm gonna watch Toy Story and appreciate that even more because
Yeah.
like it's a funny quirk in this movie, but it recontextualizes that in Toy Story.
Yeah, Planet Unstable. I actually
Planet Unstable.
I heard you laugh out loud when he said that.
Oh yeah, because is that when he jumps on the ground to like test the stability? Like he does the exact same like jump that Buzz does on Andy's bed in Toy Story 1. And then like I'm trying to remember what other lines he says. There was a bunch of lines like why don't they answer? But I think my favorite line that was like a callback to Toy Story was there's a scene where something happens to Buzz's ship and Chris Evans goes, "My ship!" And it sounds exactly like the way Tim Allen says it in Toy Story. It's like he was doing like a spot on impression of Tim Allen in that moment.
Dude, hats off to Pixar, man. Like seriously, the way that they were able to do all those tiebacks is like amazing.
Yeah. And I love the overall design, like back to the whole look. I was kind of talking about how they reverse engineered his look, and one thing I recall from being a child is that I was always kind of off-put by Buzz's design because he's so bulky and kind of like disproportionate. Like he's got this tiny little head and this really big barrel chest, and but this movie managed to make that suit work around a human, like a natural human body shape, and it simultaneously looks exactly like Buzz, but it's also cool looking.
Yeah, totally.
Which is a hard, like, goal to pull off, I feel like, when you're working with like actual anthropomorphic humans rather than like toys with slightly off proportions.
Yeah, for real. Amazing. And even just like I love the purple like hood.
Oh yeah. Is it called a snook? Is that what it is?
Maybe.
Because they talk about it in Beyond Infinity on Disney Plus. I watched that last night.
Oh, nice.
The kind of behind the scenes thing. I want to say it's a snook, but I'm not sure.
Because I was wondering like what that was like with Buzz. I thought it was like his like hair or something. I didn't know what it was.
Oh yeah.
And it's like this, but now it's a hood. Like so, it's kind of like cool the way they were able to make that part of the suit work.
Yeah. But yeah. So and the music in this movie was Pixar alumni Michael Giacchino.
Oh yeah.
Which makes so much sense because the observation I made during the movie while I was listening to the soundtrack, I was kind of tuning in to see what kind of vibes I was getting, and I was like, oh, this just makes me think of J.J. Abrams' Star Trek. And then after the movie, I was like, oh, well, that makes sense because Michael Giacchino did the music in J.J. Abrams' Star Trek.
Nice.
So that totally checks out.
Heck yeah. Well, yeah. Well, speaking of J.J. Abrams, one of his I just love like the way that he would film like a lot of the flight scenes in Star Trek, like the fast paced and quick. And I was really impressed with some of these flight scenes that we see with Buzz.
Oh yeah,
it reminded me of like the way that they like when we first saw Cars, and the way and they were racing, the way they were able to animate it is very visceral. And some of these flight scenes were just so cool.
Oh yeah, and we had talked about in our Monsters Inc. episode the scene where Mike and Sully are on the door and they're falling, and how like the way they do the motion blur and everything, it just makes it feel like very real, like very live action, very like lived in. And yeah, you're right. They did the same thing in Cars, and then they do the same thing in this, where you just can feel the motion.
Yeah, when Buzz is like constantly going faster and faster, trying to approach light speed. It's just like you can just it's gripping.
Yeah, and also speaking of Star Trek, I really kind of attribute the sci-fi aesthetic in this movie to something between Star Trek and Aliens, because I really like the way they made it feel like a lived-in sci-fi world, and it's not. I don't know how to describe it. It just feels like a live-action movie, which doesn't make sense to describe it that way, but it just felt very real. Like there's so much detail. Like every button feels like you could push it. Every lever feels like you could pull it.
Yeah.
Every piece of metal looks like you could like knock on it and you would know what it sounds like. And I don't know. It's just not something you see in animated movies often. I don't think we've seen a sci-fi epic on this scale animated to this level before. Like I'm trying to think of what other animated sci-fi epics there are. There's like Titan AE, that's from the 90s.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just, that I loved about it. Like this movie just works as its own like sci-fi movie. Like it's not just a Toy Story spin-off. It is a full-blown science fiction like space opera.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up, because now that I think about it, I'm like, wow, this world is so unique, and it's mysterious and it's eerie, and they captured all it's just so cinematic, right? It captures all of these moods that typically, like you said, or you'd see in like Aliens or something like that. And can I just say, like, this world of Lightyear on this deserted planet, I'm just fascinated by this world, right? Like I am totally drawn in. It's a fun movie. There's so much to it. Yeah, I remember I said this about on our Pixar shorts about La Luna. Like I wanted to live in the world, and yeah, it's a deserted planet, but for some reason I'm just like hooked to this world. Like I just am fascinated. It's so unique, and it's just awesome. So I'm really just impressed with the world, the set design, and just the story itself.
Yeah, and to kind of iterate a little bit more articulately about, I think, what it is about this specific type of science fiction that I love. I think about movies that are science fiction that use the premise to kind of remove limitations from the plot and characters. Like, perfect example is Transformers. In those movies, every character is kind of like their own Deus Ex Machina. But a great science fiction, I think, balances heightened reality with grounded rules. And so this movie felt very grounded. Like there's like, for example, a lot of like you see lo-fi technology in this. Like there's a scene where a character literally uses a harpoon gun to beat a robot. And it's like that didn't need to be that like lo-fi, but by making it feel like that, you are placed more into the movie. You feel more attached to it. Like you slowly start to forget that it's science fiction, and it starts to feel just like real.
Yeah, right.
And you don't get that with a lot of science fiction. Sometimes science fiction, like I said, it removes those limitations, and it just feels like fantasy.
Right.
But this is true science fiction.
Yeah, and you know, something that Pixar does so well is, you know, they always have just this you know, they have great characters, but they have a message that's like threaded through everything. And so they tend to bring characters like rock them to the core, where they really have to like learn a lesson or something, which I'm sure we'll get into more. But I love how, like, you know, Buzz's ragtag crew, like they're inexperienced, you know, and, you know, thinking of that harpoon scene, this guy has no idea what he's doing. Yeah. And so it just makes it, again, more real with these characters. It's not this expert space team, you know?
Yeah. So if we can get into some of the dislikes, some of the things that I wasn't crazy about in this movie, and like, to be clear, I don't have like a lot of like really drawn out like rants or anything like that. Just a few observations. Like, one of the things was the movie started out feeling kind of slow. But for me, I think that was because of the marketing more than anything else. Because in the marketing, you see Mo and Izzy and Darby all throughout, and in this movie, you don't encounter them till much later in the movie. So you're 30 minutes into the movie, and you're like, "Where's Zurg?" And so there's just it felt to me like it was stretching out the first 10 minutes, but honestly, it was all essential. It like looking back, everything was paced really well. So I don't think it was so much a complaint as it was just a observation, a kind of like a this was a weird way to start the movie.
Yeah. I get that for sure.
One of the things you had said earlier, you had mentioned like how much you were intrigued by the world where this movie takes place and like the planet and stuff. And I gotta say, I'm a little disappointed that there were no aliens in this film, like proper aliens.
Oh, true. Robots, yeah.
Because there's no doors left open for Buzz Lightyear of Star Command to even remotely fit into this lore. I would have liked to see some aliens and maybe just a nod to the idea that the cartoon could have conceivably spun off from this movie. Because if you recall, when Buzz Lightyear Star Command came out, the movie, the first movie that came out before the TV show, that movie started with a sequence that was animated by Pixar, and it showed all the characters from Toy Story gathering around the TV because I think it was Rex or somebody got their hands on the VHS for this movie, and they're all watching it together, and they're like so excited that there's a cartoon spin-off of Buzz Lightyear.
Right.
And so that can't be canon if there's no way for that show to have spun off from this movie.
Right.
And this movie doesn't acknowledge aliens at all. And I don't know if you ever watched the show, but the show is very heavy on aliens. Like Buzz is one of the only humans in the show.
Interesting. Yeah.
So, yeah, it just that was, I felt like was a missed opportunity. Some of the scenes in this also, I will say, were really escape roomy. There's a lot of scenes that clearly were written to illustrate like an area that a character needed to grow in. So the movie sometimes was very on the nose, but it ultimately serves the story, and it's executed with intelligent audiences in mind, which is something Pixar is genuinely good at. So I think it worked. But yeah. And the final criticism I'm going to say, and then we can put this to bed.
Sure, yeah.
There were a few times in the movie where I felt like Chris's line delivery went into a very like robotic or maybe plastic place.
Sure.
You could tell he was trying to emanate Tim Allen's Buzz, but those specific moments felt weird to me. My interpretation of Tim Allen's Buzz is that he is callous and robotic because he's a toy, because he's plastic, not because he's a space ranger. And in this movie, Buzz's character sways between charming and endearing hero and then humorously aloof piece of wood. And he kind of, different scenes, plays both sides of that. Which reminded me a lot of Drax, like when he was playing more into like the aloof. He reminded me of Drax the Destroyer from Guardians of the Galaxy. But then there are moments then where he goes back to being Star-Lord, you know. So like I just felt like there was some inconsistency there.
Okay, yeah, I can kind of see what you mean. I was kind of impressed that the way that in my mind it was kind of like he was able to have some of those character traits that were reminiscent of the toy while also still being different from it. So I guess for me, I didn't have too many issues with it, but I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Getting back to, so I love socks, but I think one of my complaints with socks was also this idea of like a character having like two different traits or two different personalities.
Yeah.
I felt like there were times where Socks was genuinely a robot with like occasionally funny things that still fit into like, I believe this is a robot. But other times where it's straight up like, it's like, okay, this is no longer a robot. This is like an AI, like on the verge of like almost like humanistic. Like it was like so ridiculous that I was
Yeah.
like, whoa, wait, I thought it was a robot. Because like I compared Socks to like Doug from Up. Okay.
Yes.
So like, you know, these a lot of funny one-liners, but you still believe that Doug is like a dog and like limited intelligence.
Yes.
But like Socks would say things and I'm just like, doesn't seem like a robot. So that was some criticism there. But.
I totally get what you're saying, because I can spot those moments where he's more like a Siri or an Alexa, where
Yeah.
it just feels like he's programmed to say something in response to what you say. But then there's other times where he's having emotional reactions. Like, I won't spoil the moment, but there is a moment where his quote unquote life is saved, and he thanks the person who saves him. He's like, "Oh, thank you," and it's like, I don't think if you were like as robotic as you were at the beginning of the movie, you would care that much about being saved. You
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
But it is a family movie, so like I feel like you can get away with that because kids are gonna attach themselves to him, and
Yeah.
and so they want to be able to see kids want to be able to see him, like, you know, be grateful for and like show some emotion and stuff.
Yeah, so I get they're going with some liberties
Yeah.
there. Oh yeah, and then also speaking of the talking about the planet and species, so there were these plant vines that were constantly just grabbing people and dragging them away.
Yeah.
And maybe not much of a complaint, but like I just felt like it was a missed opportunity. It never explains like where were these plants from? Where was their source that they were like? You just I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. My interpretation was that it was the planet itself. It's like you're on like a hostile alien planet. Like the planet itself is the alien. Like think about like Ego from Guardians of the Galaxy. Like he is a sentient planet, and
Yeah.
so everything on him is trying to like kill the Guardians. So like in this case, it's like that idea. I don't know. That was my
Yeah.
interpretation.
Yeah, and you know, yeah, there is like that. I don't know if it's not really a Western vibe, but there's clearly this like desert, like dangerous stuff.
Yeah.
But to your comment about alien life, I mean, they really build up the futuristic side of robots is like, you know, robot technology is everywhere, and I actually thought it was interesting that you know, you mentioned Derek earlier, that there were a number of robots that definitely were reminiscent of Wall-E as far as like the character design. Which I thought was neat.
Yeah.
And also the laser beams that were in the robot's eyes
Yeah.
reminded me a lot of Incredibles.
Oh, yeah. See, you're right. I was trying to think what they reminded, like the robots totally reminded me of something. I'm like, these are reminiscent of something. I know what. And then, yeah, you're right. It's Incredibles that I've seen that kind of aesthetic before.
Totally, yeah. In Incredibles Syndrome, he built those robots.
Yeah.
The Vision, laser beam. Yeah.
Yeah.
Similar to those.
Yeah, and and talking about Wall-E, I definitely got Wall-E aesthetic vibes from like the ship, the turnip. Reminded me a little bit, like not in shape, but in kind of how it was, like the technology it was designed with. Reminded me a lot of the Axiom.
Oh yeah, yeah, totally, man. And so quickly wrapping up here with getting back to critique. I feel like Wall-E's actually a really good comparison because both movies very much, as you said earlier, are really just the world is very interesting between both movies. They're both very visceral films. Like the animation is like so realistic.
Yeah.
You don't almost forget you're watching an animated movie. They're both super cinematic. But I feel like with Wall-E, I really felt like I was... I lived in the world enough.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, the film may be a little bit longer, but just, you know, durations aside, I really felt like when Wall-E ended, I felt like, man, I love the world of Wall-E, but I lived there enough for the story. But with Lightyear, one of my criticisms is I felt like I wanted to be there a little bit longer. Like I feel like there was a little bit more to explore in the story. You know, I don't know what that would have been, but I do feel like they were going for a quick, fun, fast-pacing vibe, which I got, and it was fun. But I felt like there were times where I felt like, no, I think we need to spend a little bit more time here before we jump to the next thing. So, there's a critique there.
Yeah, if there ever was a Pixar movie that felt like it could potentially use a sequel, I mean, maybe this one. I don't know.
Maybe. Totally.
So maybe that'll be our picks for this episode.
Lightyear 2. Yeah, and there's some things that happen at the end of the movie that suggest that.
Yeah, so. maybe we'll get more into that in spoilers.
Yes, I'm glad you said that because I have a couple other criticisms that I'll save for the spoiler section.
But in the meantime, you hear that?
I do hear that. It sounds like the Pizza Planet truck.
Yeah, it does sound like the Pizza Planet truck. So it's on the move. Did you catch it?
I certainly did not catch it. Did you?
You certainly did not. I don't think so. I was looking for it the entire movie, if I'm going to be honest. I was like, I'm not going to miss it this time. I missed it. In fact, I didn't even look it up. Is it confirmed to be in? I'm sure it's in there. It's got to be.
Yeah, it's got to be.
Yeah, that was not privy to me. Neither was the Luxo Ball. I didn't see that anywhere.
Did not see Luxo Ball. A113 definitely. I was surprised I didn't see it because of all of the robot.
There's
text
numbers everywhere. I'm sure it was there somewhere.
Yeah, I'll have to rewatch it.
We're bad Pixar fans.
I know.
Was there a John Ratzenberger cameo?
Oh man, John Ratzenberger.
I didn't hear one.
Oh, I didn't. I will say that Pixar's they get more mysterious with it. I really feel like they purposely make them so they're hard to find.
Well, it's confirmed that he's not in.
Oh, he's
Turning Red or Luca.
Interesting. Okay, maybe he's just like, all right, guys, I need a little break.
Maybe. Yeah, but there were Easter eggs that I did catch. Okay. Did you catch anything?
Easter eggs. I remember in the theater you mentioned something about on a shelf at the end of the film there were some Easter eggs.
Yeah, I asked if you caught any Easter eggs, not me.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying that I know that what they are, but it's because you told me in the theater, so...
So you didn't catch any Easter eggs, is what I'm hearing.
I did. Okay, I did catch one Easter egg before I let you share yours. In the credits, there was so at the end of the film, there was at the very end of the credits, there was a Presto credits. One of the last, there's like RenderMan, which is their animation software, like Dolby Digital, and then there was a logo for Presto, which, as we know, is a Pixar short.
Yeah. But that makes me wonder: is there actually something like a software or something that Pixar developed that they named after that short?
Yeah. So maybe it's not an Easter egg, but I swear I've never seen that before in credits.
Yeah, I've not seen that before either. Yeah. No. So I caught in the mid-credits scene when Burnside is at his desk and he goes, "Laser shield." You see to his left there's like a bookshelf, and you see the little statuettes on the bookshelf. One of them is Bernie, and that's cool because Angus MacLane directed Bernie.
Oh, the short. Nice.
Yeah, and again, like, this is perfect like pairing of director to project, because Angus MacLane directed Bernie, which was a short film that takes place in space. Uh-huh. And then it's also sci-fi and has robots and spaceships and stuff. And then he also directed Small Fry, which is a Toy Story short that focuses on the character of Buzz.
Oh, interesting.
And then he also directed Toy Story of Terror, which is hands down, I think, the best Toy Story spinoff.
Oh yeah,
so
that's amazing.
All those credits are perfect for having him been the director of this. But anyways, I digress. The other thing I saw on his shelf was one of the little aliens from Pizza Planet.
Hey, there you go. There's your alien reference.
Yep. Yeah. And so then my takeaway from this is I have something to say regarding the Pixar theory. So we know that this movie exists in the Pixar universe, right? Andy saw this movie.
Yes, Andy saw it.
And according to the Pixar theory, Andy coexists in a world where not only Pizza Planet is a company, because he actually went there. We saw him go to Pizza Planet. But we also know that by and large, from Wall-E is a company.
Yeah.
So if we're trying to figure out how this movie confirms or denies the Pixar theory, I hypothesize that Pizza Planet and by and large both paid for product placement in this movie. And the little alien is the Pizza Planet product placement, and then Bernie is a by and large robot. Like he works on a by and large ship, so he's got to be a by and large product. So he could have been the by and large product placement.
Interesting. Wow, that's pretty meta.
Yeah,
this movie's already meta, and now we're super meta.
Yeah,
love it.
So, anyways, now it is time to get into.
That was the best segue ever because you just talked about the alien.
Oh, yeah. Yep. So, do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
Oh, go ahead, man.
Okay. Well, so I actually love the message of this film. This is my takeaway. At the beginning, they were laying on Buzz's Lone Ranger complex pretty thick. And it was so thick that I thought the film had already spelled out its message. But there are much deeper themes at play, like being at peace with past mistakes, the value of changing your course, and the importance of family. And the movie handles these themes in a really satisfying way. I think this movie was everything that it was sold as. If you were expecting a movie that feels like a traditional Pixar movie, like say maybe like a Toy Story movie, I think you will find yourself disappointed. Crazily enough, though, once I get this movie on Blu-ray, I almost feel like it belongs on a shelf next to movies like Tron and Oblivion instead of Toy Story and The Incredibles. More than any other Pixar movie, I think this movie tackles a genre in a way that didn't need to be animated. This easily could have been a live-action film. That being said, I really liked it for its story and its characters, but most of all the visuals and the tone. It was so richly and purely sci-fi. It was just my jam.
Mm-hmm. Dude, yeah. I after the movie was over, so we were there with our wives and my brother and his friend, and I really wanted to talk about the movie with you. Not just because it's a Pixar film, that we just watched together, but I remember thinking Gareth loved this movie. I knew that you would, because I feel like you have a knack for original ideas, movies that are really fun, that they just work. They work. They're clear. They're concise. And I feel like this is a movie that quickly could be underrated.
Yeah.
I feel like you have an appreciation for underrated movies.
Yeah.
I think Onward is an underrated movie that you love. I think Treasure Planet is an underrated movie that you love. I could go on and on, but I feel like this will be like that for you with Lightyear. I think people will genuinely like it because it's Buzz Lightyear.
Yeah.
But I think as far as appreciating the story, the movie for its story, overall, I think that will probably be underrated.
Yeah.
And of course, critics already... are they're not putting it in the top of the catalog, so I'll be interested to see where you put it, but that'll be later. So as far as my takeaway goes, I as you know, with takeaways in films, I really have to mull it over a lot before I really am okay, I get it. So that'll take me some time, but I think for me, as you said, these messages of learning to forgive yourself for past mistakes is huge. It takes Buzz, the whole movie to learn that that it's okay to make a mistake and to move on. Izzy actually has a moment in the film where where I think Mo makes a mistake and she quickly is to say hey, it's okay, we all make mistakes, and so she is the counter part to Buzz. And then you've got Mo, who's constantly making mistakes, so it's just hammering, he's the polar opposite to Buzz. And Buzz is just you are not qualified, and so those characters are constantly challenging him. Derby is a felon. Makes mistakes, so many mistakes that she's literally a felon, and so she is begging. Her character's begging for redemption and second chances. It's brilliant, Pixar, brilliant, well done. But then the other message, which I think is actually really the message, is, as you said, that it's okay to need others. You know, and Buzz's character is so self-sufficient, and the very beginning of the film, when we see his ship getting marooned, you know, there is a young character who's like, hey, I want to help. He's literally like Mo. He's like, I want to help. And he's like, no, I got this. You're not qualified. So, and then, you know, he makes a mistake. And so you learn quickly, like, maybe Buzz should have asked for help, you know?
Yeah.
And Buzz learns, you know, at the end, there's a couple, there's so many lines that during the movie, I'm just like, ugh. There is, so here's one example, when the characters are in this little outpost, and they end up getting, Mo makes a mistake, and they all get like these like cones that come over them, and they're like little like jails, but they like move with them, and the characters bump into each other, and whenever that happens, they end up getting into the same cone, like combines their cones, and so all the characters about Buzz get like they get separated into this one cone, and they quickly realize in order to get out of the situation, the rest of the team is like, Buzz, you need to join us. Like, you need to get into our cone. And he's like, no, like, then if we do that, like, we're screwed. Like, you know, I need to be over here. And then there's a line that happens where she says, Buzz, you don't need to save us. You need to join us. Just like, dang. So that line right there is just like, Buzz needs to stop trying to be the savior. He needs to be a part of a team. So another example of this is towards the end of the film, when Izzy is trying to cross the ships, and she's afraid of space, and so she eventually crosses. And then there's this beautiful moment where I don't remember exactly what the line was, but Buzz essentially says like that, you know, I don't need such and such, like, I need you. And Buzz, you know, confesses like, I need you to Izzy, and that he needs the team. And so he comes full circle there. So yeah, there's some beautiful messages in the film.
2 peps. We got 2 peps ready to go.
Well, that means it's time for ratings and rankings.
How many slices did you give it?
I want you to go first.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so how many slices is the question. So, like I said, I really enjoyed this film. I love the messages. I love the originality of the story. I love the world. It was so fun. But one of the critiques that I have with some recent Pixar films is that, like, they were fun. They were a little bit lighter, which I loved. I loved let's just a new fresh movie. But sometimes I feel like there was some depth that they didn't go to. That's just some of the critique that I've had recently. But I feel like this film, it did go there. While at the same time, I do wish they would have maybe, like, you know, I don't know, had a little more screen time, had gone a little deeper. There was depth there to chew on, which is why I left the film like very satisfied with the movie.
Full belly.
Full belly. Yeah. I like I said, I still think that like there could have been a little bit more depth there, but I have hardly any complaints. It achieved what it was meant to do. The characters come full circle. Great messages. So I gave the film a 7.5 slices. And then for rankings, I put this at number 14 out of 26. So it's number 14. So it's right in my middle of my catalog, but which is saying a lot because my top 10 are like unmovable in a way, and so it's getting, you know, pretty closer. So overall, very satisfied.
That's awesome. So yeah, my rating that I gave this movie was also 7.5.
Hey, nice.
I feel like that is an accurate number just because it's good. It's definitely not like top Pixar tier good. But I gave this movie 7.5 slices out of 10, and I put it at number 15 out of 26. And I feel like I have a grasp of why mine might be one slot lower than yours.
Okay.
I won't spoil why because we haven't revealed our lists completely yet.
Yeah.
But I think there's a movie that is definitely below this for you and above this for me.
Yeah.
So we probably are pretty much on the same level with this one.
Yeah, and I it's honestly really fun to be able to do this. Also, I recommend all you listeners out there, please make Pixar lists. It is like a super satisfying thing to do.
Yeah.
And really fun. But as we're watching these movies, you know, movies are coming up and movies are moving around. And as we saw with Good Dinosaur, did not see either of us liking that the way that we did, and it moving up just a couple slots. So
yeah. So make your top 26 Pixar list, your ranked list, and send it to us on Instagram at Pizza Planet Podcast.
yes, please do.
2319! We've got a 2319!
We've got a spoiler leak! We've got a spoiler leak! Spoiler! So we wanted to tag the end of the episode with our unabridged discussion where we get to talk about spoilers. So if you have not seen the movie yet, cut the feed now. Come back and listen to the rest of the episode after you have seen the movie. If you have seen the movie, welcome. We are talking spoilers. So first thing I wanted to talk to you about, Ben, is my Pixar Feels moment. I feel like there weren't a lot of really emotional scenes in this movie, but there was one scene that came close to being my Pixar Feels moment, and that is when Buzz comes back from one of his test flights and he finds out that Alicia Hawthorne, his best friend, has died.
Yeah.
And he has just spent her entire life like flying. Basically, he just every day he gets up, he gets in his spaceship, he flies up into space, comes back, and 4 years of her life have passed.
Yeah.
And it's just such a like tragic idea. And the way it's executed, it's not like cry-worthy, at least not for me. Like I didn't cry or anything, but it definitely was executed in a way that called to mind the way Pete Docter tackled the first 10 minutes of Up.
Yeah.
Where it's a lot of a montage of a lot of visuals, and you see her life, you know, and all of her big life events, and it's like for him, he's just experiencing a couple days, and for her, it's like one day she's just very old and she's got a grandkid, and it's oh my gosh,
it's
like
powerful scenes. Yeah.
The way that was done was my Pixar Feels.
So that was also my Pixar Feels moment, and specifically, it is when the hologram comes out, and it's Alicia, you know, telling Buzz like, hey, like the next time that you come back here, like I'm not going to be here any longer. Then her little grandbaby crawls up on and she's like, who are you talking to? And she's like, I'm talking to Buzz Lightyear, the Space Ranger. And she's like, I want to be a Space Ranger someday. And she's like, oh, like Buzz? And she goes, no, like you. And it's so sweet. And then the Pixar Feels moment is when she reaches out her hand and she points her finger towards Buzz and she says to infinity, and then he reaches out and says and beyond.
Oh, so
and that was my Pixar moment.
Okay, so not to like backtrack too much, but that just reminded me something I totally skipped over from earlier in our discussion. I was going to bring up the to infinity and beyond thing. Mm-hmm. So one thing that I won't say it was a dislike, but this was an interesting observation. So in the original Toy Story movies, Buzz has this catchphrase, to infinity and beyond.
Right.
And I feel like the way he uses it felt like, oh, this is obviously a reference to something.
Oh,
like we don't have any context for what to infinity and beyond means in the Toy Story movies. It's just Buzz's catchphrase. So it's natural to assume that you're going to get context of why he says it the way that he says it in this movie. But you don't. In fact, the way that Buzz says it, like the way Tim Allen says it, it's like a superhero battle cry. And then in this movie, it's more of like a secret handshake.
Yeah. Right.
And those are like two different ways of saying it. Like how did this secret handshake in this movie then becomes something that the toy version of Buzz uses as a battle cry.
Yeah. Well, it honestly makes a lot of sense if you think about toy marketing for movies.
Oh.
Like it's a cash grab kind of thing. So I could totally see it like theoretically happening in the Toy Story world where they make a toy and they're like, oh yeah, he says to infinity and beyond. I like that. Let's put that in the toy.
Yeah. I guess I was just a little bit bugged because it is reverse engineered.
Yeah.
And they're clearly trying to pull at your heartstrings. In that moment you're talking about, they're pulling at your heartstrings.
Yeah.
And then they say to infinity and beyond, and it's like, that's so good, But then you think about the context of where to Infinity and Beyond began, and it suddenly starts to make less sense.
Yeah. No, it is interesting. I love that they turned that line into something that's a little bit more personal.
Yeah.
And everything. So
yeah. Well, another scene I wanted to talk about. Now, you already kind of talked about this scene, but I was gonna save it for spoilers.
Okay.
But yeah, the scene where Izzy is crossing space was so terrifying for me because I'm already terrified of the abyss. Anytime a movie uses the ocean or deep space as a element of intrigue, or you use that as the subject of a thriller or a horror movie, I'm all about that because it's so scary and visceral. And in this movie, they establish early on that Izzy has astrophobia, fear of space. And so the entire movie, you kind of have that in the back of your mind that, well, she probably is going to have to do something in space at some point in this movie. But I was not imagining it being that scary because when you feel her fear, the character empathy that you have with her is so strong that scene, it was intense for me. It was a nail biter. So basically, to describe to the audience what the scene I'm talking about is when she has to free float through space and aim her body at a door to try and make sure that she hits the right spot, because once you're in space, you're moving in one direction, you don't change directions.
Right.
You can't course correct. And so that is just if she misses, then she's floating through space forever.
Yeah.
And then that's also the scene where Socks starts to float off, and then she grabs him and is like, thank you for saving my life. And it's like, you're a robot.
Yeah. Well, Sarah loves Socks, my wife, and she literally... when she almost loses Socks, she was freaking out. And so when she grabbed Socks, she grabbed my arm. She's like, "Oh, thank God." She's more concerned for Socks than Izzy.
Yeah, I think Socks was my wife's favorite part of the movie too. But yeah, I also wanted to talk about the Zurg, the Zurg plot twist, the big elephant in the room.
Zig.
I just want to talk about. I'm a little conflicted about the idea that Buzz is Zurg.
Imagine that in the writer's room. Just guys, what if Buzz is Zurg?
I mean, I think it works for the purposes of this movie.
Yeah.
But the reason I call it into question is specifically because of the Toy Story movies. If it weren't for the Toy Story movies, I think that plot twist was brilliant. But here's the thing. In Toy Story, they refer to him as the evil Emperor Zurg, which we never hear that. I don't think we ever hear that phrase in this movie. In fact, in this movie, Zurg is not known by any of the human characters. No. They just know these robots who are his minions. And we find out later, much later, that they're servants of Buzz, but they can't pronounce the word Buzz, so they say Zurg. And so the humans refer to the spaceship that they come from as the Zurg ship. So, but they know nothing about the character Zurg. So it's just confusing how would the marketing for this movie in the Toy Story universe gone from, okay, there's this old Buzz, but his minions call him Zurg, and then the character then becomes the evil Emperor Zurg, and even Buzz, the toy, doesn't know that Zurg is him. So we obviously see a whole sequence in Toy Story where Buzz fights Zurg, and Zurg is not big enough to be piloted by a Buzz inside him, but yet we know from this movie that is the case. There's a Buzz inside Zurg.
Yeah.
And if Andy saw this movie, which we know he did, because this movie states at the beginning
Yeah.
that this is Andy's favorite movie. So if Andy saw this movie, that means that he knows that Zurg is old Buzz. So why wouldn't Buzz, the Tim Allen, the toy Buzz, also know that? And don't even get me started on how much this plot twist retcons Buzz Lightyear's Star Command. Like, we already talked about that, but like this plot twist especially retcons everything we know about Zurg.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Yeah, the other thing I was going to say about Zurg, did he remind you at all of Charles Muntz from Up?
Oh, yes.
I actually thought for a minute that it was Christopher Plummer voicing him.
Oh, yeah.
And then I saw in the credits that it was James Brolin, and I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But yeah, that was instantly when he comes out of the suit. Like everything from his character design to his voice to the way he's used in the story as like, oh, he's this old man ally now. Like first we think he's a villain, then we think he's an ally, and it's like, oh, it's just a big misunderstanding, and then we realize we're on two different we have two different agendas or two different motives, and that they don't mesh, so now we have to be enemies. And it's the exact same thing that happens in Up with Charles Muntz.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Wow, I never made that connection until just now. That's awesome.
But yeah, that was all I had to say about Buzz, or about Zurg.
About Zurg, yes. So yeah, I also have some issues with Zurg. So I'm going to refer to Zurg as Evil Buzz because it makes more sense when I say it that way. But quickly, once Buzz encounters, Evil Buzz, Zurg, keep in mind, Zurg is, responsible for, all this terrorizing. All of its minions have literally been trying to kill Buzz and his crew, and Buzz doesn't really question it very much. He's just like, oh, you're me. Okay, yeah, we can work together. Like, I feel like there's not much pushback from Buzz to being like, what? Like, why are you doing this? And like you literally threatened me and my crew, and like,
Did he though?
Well, his minions did.
I think that if you rewatch the movie, I think that's the whole plot twist, is there's never a point where the robots were ever putting people in peril. Because the robots never made it past the laser shield.
Okay.
And so we don't actually know why they were trying to get in. People just assumed they were attacking. But they're just literally standing outside the shield trying to get in.
Oh.
We don't know why. And then the times that they interacted with Buzz and Izzy and their crew, they literally every time just went for Buzz, didn't try and harm him, just tried to abduct him.
Oh,
so we misinterpret. I think that's the whole point of everything up to that point in the movie, is we are interpreting their actions, assuming they mean harm, not realizing that there's a possibility that they don't.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, you're right. Because their end action was just abduction.
Yes,
which
we never actually see in the movie them hurt anybody.
Yeah. There are some high speed chases that were a little dangerous, but
yeah,
I guess in the end they were reduction. So yeah, that is a good point. I do think though that for me another issue that I have with Zurg, and this is kind of like my main point of tension, is that I don't fully buy Evil Buzz.
Yeah.
I needed more proof for me to believe it. So like I understand his logic of what he explains for himself. He says, like I want to, fix my mistake, and I've spent, my whole life, regretting this mistake. And we have a couple quick scenes of like what actually happened from Evil Buzz, like when he gets there and the guards are all like trying to take him away for stealing the ship, and then he blasts off. He gets out of there, and then he finds this some sort of future ship technology that he starts using. That's all we see. So like we don't really see like his journey of becoming like truly set upon like he basically he has good intentions, but they're evil. It's almost like in Avengers, Thanos, right? He's got like these like theoretically good intentions, but he's clearly evil, right? So I just don't. I need more proof to see. Like I need to see time with him, like being alone and constantly just like dreading his decision. Like I need to see that to really believe like Evil Buzz.
Yeah. So one other thing I was going to mention while we're talking spoilers. If you have seen the movie, I'd encourage you to watch Beyond Infinity on Disney Plus. There was one little tidbit. There's a lot of cool stuff they talk about in that I don't know what to call it, behind the scenes thing.
Yeah.
And including some footage I'd not seen before. They actually show some of the early test footage of Toy Story that I've never seen before, back when Woody was like a ventriloquist dummy.
Oh.
It looks so scary. Like it's really interesting because it's like fully animated and stuff, but
Wow,
it's
nice.
very... And they have different voices too, so it's very weird. But anyways, in that documentary, or that behind the scenes short, it has a lot of interviews with the filmmakers at Pixar, and they share a lot of really interesting insights about how they developed the story. But one thing I was going to share, Angus MacLean talks about how working at Pixar kind of is what inspired the story of Lightyear. He said that when you're working on an animated movie, time moves quicker. So he feels like he's experienced a series of time lapses in his career where he has seen people and relationships just come and go from his life. So it's actually working in the animation industry that inspired this story about Buzz in a situation where time is moving differently for him than for everyone else. Like everything else around him, all of his relationships are moving much faster, while he's kind of stuck moving in slow motion, kind of.
Oh,
That's what specifically inspired the plot of this movie. So I thought that was like fascinating, because they go into a little bit more detail about like the pandemic and the role that played in this story too. But there's a lot of really interesting stuff in Beyond Infinity on Disney Plus.
Dude, well, check it out, y'all. That's really cool. I wanted to send you, because we've talked about this before, about the Pixar in a Box course. It's a free course where you can learn about animation. I just watched a little clip of that on YouTube, because they uploaded some of those courses on YouTube, just as separate clips. And one of them, it was with Pete Docter, and he was talking about story writing at Pixar. And he did a quick little segment on Monsters, Inc. And when I talked about on our Monsters, Inc. episode about the inspiration that Pete took from his own life, that inspired the story of Monsters, Inc. of Sully's relationship with Boo, was based on Pete's relationship with his child on the way. He actually talks about that from there. I think that's actually where I got that story, was from this course. Yeah. But again, yeah, it's really cool when you hear that true inspiration, from a director, and how it affects the movie. Is really cool.
Yeah.
I also got to say, too, now that we're in our spoiler section, so Gareth right now is wearing a shirt that says "Bob deserved better" in the Stranger Things font, and I got to say that I think I want to get a shirt that says "Future Socks deserved better."
Oh, oh yeah. He had like his eye smashed out, or like part of the headpiece of him like was destroyed, so he looked kind of like abused. Which I think that was more so conveying like, hey, this is a different Socks than the one this one's much older. I think that's what I was trying to convey. But it also made me a little bit sad, because I was like, what happened to him that he has part of his head missing?
Did you see that like Zurg straight up kills Future Socks in the movie? He literally steps on them. Yeah.
Oh. That, okay. So see, now that way more effectively conveys, I think, your point about him, his evilness, because I had not considered him killing anyone in the entire movie, and yeah, if he kills Future Socks, that definitely counts as like, oh no, he's lost it, he's unhinged.
Oh yeah, and you even mentioned that yourself, that like there was a turning point, and after that turning point, he not only kills Socks, but he's actually hunting Buzz and the rest of their crew.
Yeah. So he does snap. I admit that. Yeah. But I guess I thought he was his actions were more believable, because he's like, okay, I have this obstacle in my way.
Oh, I see.
And I need to take that obstacle out of the way so I can achieve what I've been trying to spend my entire life doing. Like, I can totally buy that an old guy who's been like working his entire life to fix a mistake that he made,
Yeah.
would become obsessed to the point of, yes, if it means like there are obstacles in my way, like people actively trying to stop me from fixing my mistake, then I'm gonna have to do something about that. Like I can buy that, but he didn't need to kill Future Socks.
No,
that was just him like punishing him for helping Buzz.
Yeah.
So like that to me is 100% more sinister than him like chasing or like hunting Buzz.
Oh, sure, yeah. And I mean, yeah, he's through and through evil. But I think there's even a moment where we literally see his eyes, his character. He goes from kind of this like happy old man to like you see him change. And I think that like whenever that happens in movies or in stories, usually it's kind of like the villain reveal, you know?
Yeah.
It was a cliche villain reveal. Like when he killed Future Socks, I was not surprised. I was like, yeah, like he's evil now. So that's how I interpreted that like animation shift of his face. I was like, oh yeah, I know what's gonna happen. But no, it was shocking for sure. And Sarah was not happy. She was like, I wanted
both socks to be together. Like
I wanted
take
to be
both
together.
of them home. And
care for them.
Repair old socks. So that
He would have been like a stray who's like a little mangy, you know, and like needs some love. Like, but R.I.P.
Well, that was all my notes.
I think that's everything. Buzz at the very end of the film gets to use his wings. I was like, yes.
Oh yeah, the entire movie I was wondering like where are the wings gonna come in because the toy is so clearly inspired like verbatim by the Space Ranger suit that we see at the beginning, but there was no wings on it, and I was like, wait a second, why would they add wings to the toy if that wasn't in the movie? And I was like, no, this can't be the case, because wings are one of the most like pivotal parts of the suit in Toy Story. Like he thinks he can fly, like that's the whole thing about his character. And I'm like, no, like are they like retconning the wings? But no, it just is something that they add on at the very end.
And he had like the rockets or whatever. I was like,
I was a little bit scared too, because the first time we see the wings, it's like a parachute pack that he puts on, and the wings are very short, and I was like, no, like he has an impressive wingspan. Like I'm pretty sure that is like an actual line in Toy Story when Ham goes, impressive wingspan. Like you don't put like little like tiny wings on Buzz Lightyear, but then we see the real wings added to the suits at the end.
And we can finally put the debate to rest. Buzz can fly.
Yes. He can fly. And did you notice the Space Ranger suits that appear at the beginning of the movie are a little bit more, I don't know what to call them. They feel more grounded in sci-fi, kind of the way I was talking about earlier. A little bit more grungy, I guess. Yeah. But then they come back at the end with the wings, and there just looked like there was less seams on the suit, like less seams between the metal parts, so that it did look more accurate to the toy, because the toy doesn't really have as many seams on it. Like you don't see like little
stitches or whatever.
Yeah, whatever you call the spaces between the different metal plating and whatnot. And so on the Space Ranger suits we see at the end, it's clearly trying to show like these are the suits that the toy was based on.
Oh yes, that makes sense now. Actually, yeah. Totally. And then of course he gets that final line. One of the final lines that the Toy Buzz says is "Not today, Zurg."
Oh yeah,
which I love that. I was like, yes.
Well, and I'm surprised we didn't talk about this when it first reveals Zurg, like who he is or whatever. He sees old Buzz's face, and Buzz goes, Dad? And it's a callback to Toy Story 2, which again frustrates me because I'm like, okay, is this retconning everything we know about Zurg from the Toy Story movies? Like, because again, he's the evil Emperor Zurg. We have the obviously that was a derivative joke when they do the whole "I am your father" in Toy Story 2, because it's supposed to be a joke at Star Wars. But in this movie, they make a joke about that joke that also retcons the joke itself. So it's like, what is going on?
Yeah, that was their way of getting it in a little bit. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
But
But
still,
now, yeah.
doesn't
So,
really work. But
I feel like this movie enriches the experience of watching Tim Allen Buzz Lightyear in the Toy Story movies, but it does not do the same for Zurg. I feel like going back and rewatching Toy Story 2 is going to feel weird.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be like, so this is a toy based on old Buzz Lightyear. But it looks nothing like him because the Zurg in Toy Story 2 is wearing kind of like a cape and like a cloak kind of gown thing.
yeah.
Which we know from the Buzz Lightyear Star Command TV show is clearly supposed to be fabric. But in this, he's like just a robot with giant arms and giant legs. And really the only design they retained from Toy Story 2 is the face. It looks like the same face. So I'm so confused.
Yeah.
What they were doing with Zurg in this movie.
Yeah. That will be a little strange going back. We'll have to talk about that when we do Toy Story 2. So
Yeah.
that'll be fun.
Well, that's, I think, about everything.
Well, guys, thanks so much for listening to this episode, this movie review on Lightyear. And
Yeah, in spirit of this movie, I think maybe for our send-off, we should To Infinity.
wait, hold on before we do that, because we have to end that way. We have to say, please go see Lightyear. It's so good. Go to theaters, man. Go into a physical theater with others.
This
and
movie,
see
is in theaters. It's not streaming on Disney Plus. Go see it in the theaters before it ends up on Disney Plus, because if you don't go see it, Disney's going to be like, oh, well, Pixar is no longer, making money in theaters, and we're gonna have to toss all their future movies onto Disney Plus. Or worse, they're gonna just take this one out of theaters and put it on Disney Plus in like a week.
Yeah, don't.
They won't do that. They won't do that though.
Don't let that happen. The theater experience is so worth it. There's nothing better than hearing people's gasps and laughs. In theater is always such a good experience. And come on, guys, just wait a couple weeks or however long it is. It'll be on Disney Plus. But go and support your local theaters too. There's a lot of mom and pop theaters around here, and it's just cool to be able to support them. So please.
And it's worth it, because seeing this movie on a big screen was beautiful. There are so many details in the animation and like the scale of this movie. It is one of the most epic looking Pixar movies to date.
Dude, it's so worth it. The sound design, I'm so glad we got to see it in theater. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, in the spirit of the movie we just saw, I think for the sign off today, To Infinity
and beyond.